Hello, Horror Hounds. What can you say about A Return to Salem's Lot from 1987? That's what I've been mulling over for the last couple of days. If you want my opinion on it as a sequel to Tobe Hooper's TV miniseries Salem's Lot, or the Stephen King novel, one of my favourite Stephen King novels, then my thoughts on this film are simple to express. It's a cheap cash grab. The cover has Barlow on it, and that's completely undeserved, designed purely to lure you in as a fan of Salem's Lot. It doesn't carry over any of the characters from the original. It doesn't even carry over any of the continuity from the original. In fact, it flat outright contradicts Stephen King's story of Salem's Lot. As a sequel to Salem's Lot, it's a diabolical piece of shit, and you shouldn't waste your time on it. So that's the quickest review I've ever had to do on this channel. Take care, everyone. However, if you want to see this film not as a sequel to Salem's Lot, and I know it's called A Return to Salem's Lot, but if you are in a charitable mood and actually want to see this movie as a return of the pairing of writer-director Larry Cohen and one of his go-to actors, the amazing Michael Moriarty, a team responsible for The Stuff, and which I haven't seen, but I need to see. And also It's Alive 3. I haven't seen the It's Alive series, and I need to. But for me, anyway, paired to genius effect in Q, the Winged Serpent, which I've reviewed on this very channel. You need to check out that review, and you need to check out Q, the Winged Serpent. Because if I'm to look at A Return to Salem's Lot as another team-up of Larry Cohen on writing and directing duties, putting his main man, Michael Moriarty, in front of the camera in one of his stories, then A Return to Salem's Lot is actually a cause for celebration in a bizarre, masochistic kind of way. This isn't as good as Q, the Winged Serpent, not at all. And like I say, I haven't seen The Stuff, and I haven't seen any of the three It's Alive films, but now I know that Michael Moriarty is in the third one. You bet your fucking ass I'm going to watch these movies. If you watch it as a Larry Cohen, Michael Moriarty movie, it's a hell of a lot of fun. Does it work? Absolutely not. And there are a metric ton of ideas in here that have all been thrown at the wall, none of which really stick. Yes, absolutely. Do you wish that they'd maybe spent a little bit more time trying to finesse a story out of this from the dozens and dozens of ideas that are in this? Absolutely yes. So, a brief rundown of what the film is about. Michael Moriarty plays an anthropologist who studies sort of lost tribes and civilizations and studies their cultures and doesn't judge them on that. The whole thing starts with him filming some sort of Amazonian tribal sacrifice of a human being. And he's lured back to the States by his ex-wife, who's played by Ronnie Blakely, Nancy's mum in Nightmare on Elm Street, who's in one scene where he meets her and her new husband at the airport, because they essentially offload their kid back onto the absentee dad, Michael Moriarty, because he's in all sorts of trouble and they can't get him in line. Some viewers have a problem with the kid. Personally, I fucking love him. Yes, he's an obnoxious shit, but his old man is a prick as well, and they just both rub each other up sort of the wrong way. His stepdad has dressed him like an extra from Miami Vice, this little kid. If there was ever a Bugsy Malone version of Miami Vice with the kids playing the adults, this kid would be frickin' in there with Crockett and Tubbs. When Michael Moriarty goes over, and the first thing he says to him, after having never seen him for years, is, how you doing? And the kid looks up at him, literally dressed like Miami Vice, looks up at him and goes, didn't they tell you? I'm fucked up. And that's it. That's the start of their relationship. And they jump in a car together and they go back to the town of Salem's Lot where Michael Moriarty's character grew up because his aunt left him a house in her will. So he decided, right, we'll go there, we'll hunker down and we'll try and make this work. And obviously Salem's Lot's full of vampires. In this version, the vampires came over with the sister ship of the Mayflower, the one that was supposedly sunk. But, you know, it's better for history to think that that ship sank so that they think we all died on the crossing, because essentially they're the pilgrims. They're just, you know, still alive because they're immortal vampires. And they've set up shop they founded Salem's Lot. So you'll see straight away it's got absolutely nothing to do with the original story. But what they want him, as a world-respected journalist and anthropologist, to do is write their vampire Bible, the history of the vampires, so that it can eventually be published and they can be accepted. What they're proposing is that they raise cattle and don't feed off humans anymore, and actually feed off the cattle, and they want to become more integrated into society. So these are ideas that would be picked up years and years later in something like True Blood. Let me be clear, none of this ever really works. You never really get the inclination that the vampires really do want to integrate and really are over drinking human blood, especially not when they're introduced by killing some people and sucking them dry. It never really rings true. So while there are shades, this could have been a really great double bill with The Howling, because there are elements in there of, you know, the getaway, the retreat for recovering werewolves that works so well in The Howling. And it does work well because there are elements that do want them to give up their animal ways. And there are elements in that movie that hate those restraints and want to go back to the old ways, that embrace their animal nature. There are never really any factions in A Return to Salem's Lot. They're always a few seconds away from drinking someone's blood or snapping someone's neck, and it never really seems like a valid concern for them. The offshoot of that is it never really seems like a sensible plan to get a human in to try and write their history. I don't really know what the ultimate end goal is. Anyway, that's all sort of thrown out of the window anyway when halfway through the movie a Nazi hunter turns up in town searching for a Nazi that he now believes lives in the area, and lo and behold, one of the vampires must have gone over to Nazi, was a Nazi for a while, and decided to go over to Nazi Germany. Little hints of the strain there. And then it becomes a sort of gonzo vampire hunting movie with Michael Moriarty teaming up with this old irascible Nazi killer. He's very clear to say he's a Nazi killer, not a Nazi hunter. When he finds them, he shoots the fuckers. They try and seduce Michael Moriarty's character by, and this is kind of weird, by reintroducing him to the girl he fell in love with when he was a child in Salem's Lot. Except she's a vampire, so she's never aged. So now he gets to enact out the middle-aged fantasy of sleeping with the 17-year-old girl he was in love with when he was in his early teens, who was still exactly the same as she was back then, and now he's a middle-aged man. It's a little bit weird and icky, and his son gets seduced by Tara Reid in her first movie performance. Think a sort of really low rent, you know, Kirsten Dunst's character in Interview with a Vampire. Was it Claudia? The child vampire that Lestat makes for Louis, who will never grow old. She's sort of like a proto Claudia. Is it Claudia? Except, no, Anne Rice would have written the novel before this movie. So, okay, this movie rips off Interview with a Vampire and takes that. Okay, sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. There's some dark fun to be had with this. There's some dark humour in there. There's a child vampire wedding, except they're not really children. They're hundreds of years old. They're just in the bodies of children. A couple of children getting married. All the scenes of the children vampires playing at night are kind of effective, kind of creepy. There's something unwholesome, something unnatural about kids playing on a swing set at night. But this is kind of like it's a stew, it's a hodgepodge of ideas. There's a ton of stuff in here, none of which is ever really teased out to any sort of logical conclusion or explored. It's all just there. It's all just there for you. It's not a good movie, but damn it, there are premises and ideas in here that frustratingly could have made probably 2 good movies. Someone would quite easily take an aging Jewish Nazi hunter, Nazi killer, tracking down his latest target to find that the guy has never aged and is a vampire. That's a fucking movie. That in and of itself is a movie. A descendant of one of the people from a town returns to find that the town always was run by vampires and is charged with writing the vampire Bible because they want to integrate with society. That alone is a fucking movie. It's a fun romp, but ultimately it's nonsense. And there's nothing in this that even comes within the same fucking postal area of the sheer blood-chilling terror in Tobe Hooper's TV series of young Danny Glick scratching on the glass of the window waiting to be let in. I don't think anyone ever expected this to set the world on fire, but there are ideas in here that could have set the world on fire. Never mind. Michael Moriarty is always great to watch.